This is the Little Moments Count radio podcast, created in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. Each episode, you'll hear interviews with early childhood experts on how to support the important brain development that takes place in the first 1,000 days of life, just through little moments every day. Learn more at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.
Good day to be Indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies are trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Little Moments Count. Native Roots Radio is excited to be partnering with Little Moments Count to host conversations focused on early childhood development, where we welcome monthly guests to talk about how they view the role of early childhood development in creating bright futures and strong communities. For more information, you can visit littlemomentscount.org.
Wow, we really enjoy our conversation with Little Moments, and we've been partnering with them for a couple of years now, and really excited. We have a young warrior here, Justis Brokenrope, and he is going to be talking a little bit about the Wahówiąpi school that he's working at, and we have a grip of questions for you, Justis. So I hope you're ready. Welcome.
Oh, Wahówiąpi, Justis Brokenrope, Makiapido, Chente, Washte Nape, Chiuzapido. Thanks for having me today, Robert, Haley.
Right on. Hey, tell us about the school and about what's going on there with the Language Nest and its mission, and talking about Dakota language.
Yeah, so we started, last year was our pilot year. I'm the assistant teacher in a Dakota language immersion preschool classroom. So in this classroom, for those who aren't familiar with immersion settings, we don't speak anything but Dakota. Right now we have 2 to 5-year-olds. We have 11 students enrolled in the class. Last year we started with 5, so we jumped up quite a bit. The lead teacher in the classroom is Brenda Toscano Whiteface. She's the first speaker, which we're really grateful to have. And yeah, we're going strong. We're about a year, not quite a year and a half into it, but enrollment's increased, and seeing great results from the kids.
Yeah, it's exciting because the young ones can learn quicker than us old ones, and the revitalization is so important to keep us being natives in the next generations to come. So I just applaud what you're doing. I know it's huge all over Turtle Island, with tribes really trying to pick it up, because I feel like we've lost a couple generations, my generation and the generation before, with boarding schools and all these things that have really tried to erase us. So I just applaud you and you working with these young ones.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's the same for me, where I only grew up with a handful of my language. I'm Lakota from Rosebud, and so we had a few words here and there in the house, but I didn't have an opportunity like this when I was a young one. And so to be a part of this now is a really big thing, and a really moving thing, and really special in so many ways.
Yeah, we can't talk about it enough. And I think, I believe, the last 10, 15 years, especially our young ones and our teens and people maybe your age are really stepping up to the plate. And that's been exciting for me to watch and see and experience too, secondhand, because we've lost our language. I mean, our family, but yet we, as Ho-Chunks, I believe we're down to 60 intimate speakers, and that's a red alert. We need to pull this out. So talk to us a little bit about how do you engage the family too? Not only the young ones, but they have to bring that home with them too.
Yeah, you said it right there. When you're at school for 8 hours a day, obviously we're staying in the language, everything's going down in that manner, but we don't have the kids those other 16 hours, obviously. And with the exception of two families, none of the other families speak Dakota as a first language at home with their children or rest of their family. And so something in language revitalization, particularly Indigenous language revitalization, the Maori and the Hawaiians are really the ones who put forth these really good models. I think roughly like 20 to 30 years ago, they were kind of figuring out what worked, what didn't work, and kind of hammered out the methods that need to happen in this sort of work. And something that we pulled from that and what we learned from them was that they had parent education classes. And so when our pilot year started last year, that would just be on a Wednesday evening during pickup. When the families would come to pick up their kids, the parents would come over and we would have a class for them where we would kind of review what we were doing with the kids in class. And so they could bring some of that language home. How do you say, oh, like put on your coat, like brush your teeth, things like that, they're just simple phrases a lot of the time. And for our language, it's one word sometimes.
Right.
And so, things that you can just embrace at home really quickly to get more language acquisition there as well is really vital. And so hopefully we get to a point where we can have more of those parent classes, and there are other Dakota language opportunities in the Twin Cities, obviously. But yeah, that's kind of one of the big components of this is making sure the parents are able to embrace the language and use it outside of the classroom with their kids.
Yeah, it is really important. So the Nest enrolls Dakota families and their those affiliated with the University of Minnesota community, but it also aims to enroll families committed to language revitalization, regardless of financial resources. How do you ensure that everyone can be and have access to this?
Yeah, so right now our cap is at 12 students. We have 11 currently. 3 of those kids belong to they're siblings. So we have 8 different families, and only one of them is non-Dakota or Lakota. And so we're not at cap yet, but obviously our priority is to give Dakota and Lakota families, or to give those families priority in this program. And then beyond that, we have scholarships available for tuition at the school. And so we've done our best to make it accessible for everyone. And I think based off last year, our pilot year starting with only 4 families and jumping now to 8, things have been going pretty strong in that regard.
Yes, there is a revitalization, and it's great. I think that we're talking about this and getting the word out. Haley, I noticed that you're listening intently. Do you have any questions? Because this is a family affair here.
Yeah, well, I just want to say language is so hard to learn, especially as the older you get. And I've definitely had my fair share of struggle with it. But so just a big peanut geeky thank you for teaching these young ones their language, especially their cultural language. And yeah, I'm happy to see this language program take off a bit more at the U of M. I didn't know about this before, so I'm really excited. And, Robert and I are both alumni from the U of M, so we really support this program and all the great work that's going on over there.
Oh, Pidamia.
Right on. I the high school I taught at taught Ojibwe and Lakota, Dakota. But I like a good hoka-hey every once in a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey, right on. Yeah. So when can you talk a little bit about your teaching? So if they're with young ones, is there games involved? Is fun things? How do you break the ice? And it's easier, I imagine, that it's an immersion school where everybody has to speak the language.
Yeah, and so for me personally, it was kind of I had just graduated from the U and studied Dakota there, and went to like programs around the city. And so when the school popped up, the job was offered to me. And I had had a little bit of experience with early childhood, but had mostly taught adults. And so it was kind of nice going into this and having a lot of really good mentors. Brenda, the teacher here, she's been teaching early childhood for a long time. Sheila Williams-Ridge, one of the directors here at the school. For me personally, they really helped me engage with children in a meaningful way, in ways that I could understand, and then apply kind of this emergent curriculum and assisting with language acquisition. And so some of the things we do, I think you would see in a conventional preschool classroom, reading stories, games, songs, a lot of that. But then, constantly maintaining ourselves in the language, just making certain that we're not breaking it. But then also a focus at this school is more of a nature-based curriculum. So we spend the majority of our day outside, and we strive to do that throughout the whole year. And that nature-based curriculum was really in line with our Indigenous perspectives too, in the ways that we want to talk about the world around us and our relatives in nature, and kind of embracing those ideas, and then, making sure that these kids are understanding that in a good and safe space where they feel comfortable, and then hearing it in the language as well. And so, yeah, it is a lot of things that you would imagine you would do with 2 to 5 year olds. But again, all in the language, and then, striving to kind of just like be outside as much as possible and see what they're interested in and the things that they want to talk about and how we can talk about it in the language.
I'd like to hear some of the obstacles. One of the things I was thinking as you were talking is being a former teacher, it was 10 months with the kids and then we wouldn't see them in the summer, but that's got to be hard for a language learner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Regarding obstacles, I mean, that's a huge one. There are things you can do over the summer, but that being said, not a lot of them are catered towards early childhood most of the time. They're more towards people around our ages. And so finding ways that kids can, there's an organization, Dakota Yapio Korakichie, which is DIO, that's based out of the Twin Cities, that organizes a lot of camps. And those are where kids can go, kind of hear languages. I've worked there. Brenda's worked there. Other Dakota teachers work there from time to time. And so there are opportunities, but yeah, it is definitely a challenge. And that's kind of the key thing, where it's like we want to set these parents up to be able to speak more at home and more consistently. And we can see when that happens too. But yeah, it's that's definitely an obstacle. Another one that I think is pretty well known across Indigenous language revitalization in general is that we need more speakers, more learners, and more of those willing to be teachers. When you start learning your tribe's language, especially as a young person, there's an inherent pressure where everyone's like, well, are you going to go teach it? And so I think a lot of people get intimidated, and maybe that's not their priority at that time, or that's not what they want to do, and that's okay. But really, we just need more people, learning as much as they can. But yeah, it's there are certainly challenges, and I think Ho-Chunk, Ojibwe, all the other groups in this area that resonates with them as well. So.
Hey, can you hang with us for another segment and howl with us? We're going to howl for Howling for Wolves in the beginning of the segment. And you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we're here with Justis Brokenrope, and we're going to talk more about language. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations. Good morning.
Right on, Justis. We didn't have to beg you. That was a good one. That was a good howl.
I'll take any chance I can.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we're here with Justis Brokenrope, and we're talking about WahóHP Language Nest, and it's a Dakota immersion school, preschool, a classroom located within the University of Minnesota Childhood Development Laboratory School. So we're really excited to talk to you about these things that really are important to us as Native Americans, and also our allies that are listening to us and want to support us. Before I get on with my questions, what is the one thing that you would like to say about the school and about your work? And I know you've learned the language, you weren't brought up with it. Talk to our audience and tell them from your heart how important this is for you and our communities.
Yeah, I think some of the things I kind of mentioned earlier in terms of I didn't grow up with the language. I started learning it kind of without meaning to a couple years back, and then realize this is where I wanted to be and what made sense at this point in my life right now. And I just hope that other young people and maybe parents, folks who have that opportunity or it's accessible to, can try and engage with it. I know in some ways it can be a privilege. Going to the university is a privilege. Like, a lot of these things are really difficult to obtain, depending on your circumstances. And so, I don't consider myself a fluent or advanced speaker. I still think of myself as an intermediate, even though I've been learning for 5 years. But that's the thing, is with our cultural ways, our language, we're always learning. And so, this is something I hope that other people hearing this or younger students can maybe think about, is just picking up some of your language, even if you don't want to be a teacher, even if you don't think you can do it right now, just doing your best to retain some of those things and pass it on for these future generations, because that's why we're doing this, is so we can bring back the language, revitalize it, and hopefully some of us raise our children in it and create new first speakers. I can never be a first speaker. So many people can never be a first speaker, but we have the opportunity right now to create them. And so that's kind of the thing, and why I'm here is I envision a place someday where I only hear Dakota or Lakota, and being able to hear that in the Twin Cities even, or something like that, would show me that this works and that this is why we're doing this and why it's important.
A friend of mine, Barry Hand, when I was trying to get into my Ho-Chunk language, he suggested, and he used to work at Harding High School when I worked there. He suggested using a word, and I don't know how frequent, but he said, replace it. Don't ever say it in English again. And I thought, wow, that's a really unique, I haven't done that, but that's a really unique way to look at that, and very doable. I know we talk in statements or more than one words, like, hey, Kadagi, Choka, that's just greeting my grandfather, for instance. What kind of tricks can we use as adult language learners, just off the top of your head?
Yeah, there's some that feel kind of obvious. I think when you start learning a language, is like one thing that I was told is start labeling things in your house. Then you get used to seeing those words, or if you know how to read the orthographies or the way they're written, you can start pronouncing them. And even if you don't retain them in your head necessarily, you're still going to see it, visualize it, and you get used to the visual. If I have a cup or something like that, or a door, like any of those things. But then, I don't know, everyone has different styles of learning, and it took me a while to figure out what worked best for me. But something fun that I've tried to do in this era of so much streaming and media consumption, I do use subtitles a lot in English. And so I'm seeing the words, and I'll often try and translate a movie that I'm watching in Dakota or Lakota, and just kind of, that's like fun for me. Or listening to music. I've joked about the Ramones are one of my favorite bands, and their lyrics are very simple and they're easy to translate. And so just any way that you consume media and ways that you can alter it to be in the target language that you're trying to learn, those are kind of like fun and helpful ways, in my opinion, to acquire that language.
Yeah, I saw a young somebody, I don't know which language it is. I thought it was Dakota or Dakota, that they did voiceovers for a cartoon. And that I was thinking, well, you could do that if you can do different voices.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Bernstein Bears. There's a whole season in Lakota, so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
possible.
yeah. Yeah, that's something to do. And I know a lot of my older relatives don't speak the language, but they can understand it, which is kind of unique. They were brought up; their grandma would say words or speak in their language, but they never went to the next step. So, yeah, that's really cool. So, I just want to ask you, what can our listeners and the broader community do to support your school and the initiatives that are happening? And it's Wahójourdpi. What can people do to support that?
Yeah, supporting Wahójourdpi. There's a lot of different things. Again, to reiterate, looking for opportunities where you're from or where you're around to learn language. The more that we have people we can talk to, the more that language is alive and is around, and you hear it, embrace it. I don't have many people I can talk to day to day in Dakota or Lakota, and so just again getting a few words in here and there, trying to do as much as you can with the language. For the school directly, in a lot of ways, like so many things in Indian country, we're grant based, and so financial means, if you have those, like it's always something to consider. And then just acknowledging the land you're on and thinking about where you're at, the space. This is a university that benefited from land grab, and so it's something to think about, that we're bringing the language back to this land. The University of Minnesota is right on the river, and so we think about that constantly with our kids, what we're doing. Dakota is being spoken here every day on this river and on this piece of land, and that's why these children are here, and these children are sacred, and that's what we got to do.
Wow. Good words. Good words. I think you should drop the microphone. And that was, no, seriously, that's what we like to hear from our language warriors and our young warriors, right, Haley?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, I caught you there, Haley, with your mic muted, but yeah. The button was close, but I appreciate that. And one last words, how can we creep on you guys? Got a website or any kind of Facebook out there?
Yeah, the URL is kind of funky. It's lab-school.umn.edu/language nest program. But if you just visit Dekshi Google and type in Dakota immersion classroom, or like Twin Cities Dakota language nest, it'll pop up first result. And so that's kind of where you can find it. And then if there are people looking for volunteer opportunities or wanting to participate in the parent language class, just reach out. DO is another good organization. The founder of this program also works for that program, and so that's Shishoka Dutta Joe Bendixson. So there are different opportunities within the Twin Cities, kind of where we're all interconnected. But that's our website, and it's kind of what we do here. So.
Right on. Hey, thank you so much, Big P Nagigi. Thank you for coming on the show. If you're listening to the show, you're part of the resistance. We're still here. We are the 7th generation.
Free Leonard Peltier. Now.
Thanks for listening to the Little Moments Count radio podcast in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. You can find the Little Moments Count radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.